Hi everyone, and welcome back to Good Brothers YouTube channel. As promised, today we are going for a deep dive into biodynamic winemaking. Of the three that we're talking about, organic, biodynamic and natural, organic and biodynamic are the two that really are quantifiable. Natural, unfortunately, is just a term that is used and there's no qualification of what actually it means. Biodynamic does mean something. It's not just a marketing term that people use and throw around to make their wine sound fancier or charge more. It is actually a way of life. So what are biodynamics? What does it mean? In essence, biodynamic winemaking means that we are making wine with everything in balance. The vines, the earth, humankind, the solar system, planets, it gets that big. It's all about the resonance of everything being in balance. Sounds quite hippie-ish? It is, but that's what's fantastic about it. Biodynamic winemaking is about 100 years old. It was the brainchild of an Austrian philosopher, Rudolf Steiner, in the 1920s, or 1920, and he actually came up with this whole concept of holistic agriculture about a year before he died. He gave a series of lectures on this. You can find out a lot more about this. There's a lot of books you can read. They're really quite dry, but they have a huge amount of information. Things like What is Biodynamic Wine by Nicolas Joly. Nicolas Joly, one of the most important winemakers in the biodynamic sphere. But it all started with Rudolf Steiner and his belief that we have to respect the earth, we have to look at the lunar cycles, and we pick on certain days, we prune on certain days, we fertilize on certain days, we don't do anything on certain days. And it's about this balance, which is fascinating. And we'll go into that in more detail now. So as we've just discussed, there are 4 key days throughout the lunar calendar month that we do things in the vineyard. And interesting, it's all about the vineyard here. It's not about the winery. Biodynamics is all about what happens in the vineyard. There are fruit days, which are the days that are best for picking. There are root days, which are the best days for pruning plants. There are flower days where we do nothing in the vineyard whatsoever. These are days which, if you do anything, you risk ruining everything. And then there are leaf days, which are the days which we want to water in the vineyard. Now each one of these is linked to an earth sign or a lunar sign. So leaf days, which are the watering days, are linked to the water signs. Fruit days are linked to the fire signs, and so on. And the lunar calendar dictates when we should be doing these. And it's a fascinating thing to look at. There's a huge chart which plots out years in advance of when specific things have to be done. And to be classified as biodynamic, you cannot deviate from these days. You have to adhere to it. And this is one of the things which is really important about biodynamics, is that it is actually very closely monitored and controlled. One of the things which is really important with biodynamics is that there's a very controlled use of yeasts. No man-made yeast can be used, very similar to what we discuss in natural wine later on. Everything here must be wild, indigenous yeast. Nothing man-made can be used. As we've already discussed, biodynamic winemaking is all about what happens in the vineyard, not the winery. So one of the most important things that we can do in the vineyard is fertilization. Of course, with biodynamics, we cannot use anything man-made. It has to be organic and naturally occurring. And this is where the beautiful, weird and wacky world of cow horns comes into play. Now, cow horns go back to ancient Viking mythologies where the cow horns were believed to give life-enhancing qualities. And this is one of the philosophies used in the vineyard. Cow horns are packed with manure, they're buried in the soil, left for a long period of time, where everything concentrates down, becomes so rich with nutrients and minerals. We then dig it up, we then add a tiny amount of water and we spray that over the over the soils, and that does wonders. But that's only one of nine fertilizing uses that there are out there. These include other sort of chamomile, stinging nettle teas, and all these things which can be used. We'll put a link to a list of all 9 of them in the notes below for you as well. But yes, fertilization in the vineyard is so important, and this is where the slightly funny hippie stuff comes from. So just to round off then, biodynamics is a really interesting and very complex field to look at with regards to the regulations. And it might sometimes be thought that it's restricted to very out there, weird and wacky winemakers. The reality is, a lot of people work in a biodynamic manner. They follow these practices. Some very well-known producers work in a biodynamic manner. People like the Cazes in the Roussillon in the south of France, Michel Chapoutier in the Rhone Valley, one of the most iconic winemakers in the Rhone Valley, works biodynamically. Bonnie Doon in California, Bonterra in California, Benzinger in California, Nicolas Joly in the Loire Valley. There are so many people working biodynamically. A lot of them don't necessarily have the classification on the back because it costs a lot of money to actually go through the whole process. But so many actually work in that manner. And I've been asked before, can you tell the difference between a biodynamic and a normal wine? It's very difficult to tell the difference because we're not influencing the taste or style of a wine. What we're doing is we're respecting the soil it comes from. So we're not trying to create a style of wine that's different. What I would say is that anyone who works in a biodynamic manner cannot fail but make better quality wines. And these don't have to be weird and wacky. They can be really beautiful and clean and poised. They can also be along the natural route, and a lot of natural winemakers use biodynamics. So no, you cannot taste a biodynamic wine. You can just taste the quality in the wine. If you have any other questions about biodynamics, please do leave a message below in the comments. If you haven't signed up, do sign up to our channel. We'll be releasing videos every single week. But as always, as I go, I always tell you and remind you, drink better wine.